what the other's feeling and what they're thinking. And that's how you really learn to have a smooth riding home atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always going to be conflict. You're never going to not somehow hit the gear wrong.
Hello and welcome to the Family Business with the Alessis, where family is everybody's business. And today you're listening to Mary Alessi.
That's me.
Yes, Steve Alessi. And we're
That's
here
you.
talking about all things that we don't get to talk about
Yes,
on Sundays. Time restrictions don't allow us to talk about some things, and also just the audience.
Sure.
We can't always speak our mind
Yeah.
like we'd like. But that's what our podcast is for. We're wearing green. If you can see us, we're both wearing green. If you can't, we'll describe it for you. It's because we just were doing some recording for the holidays, and we got some great things
big
coming
Christmas
up.
season coming up. Big
it is.
holiday, Thanksgiving and Christmas. A lot going on.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for joining us. You've been great to listen to us for the fourth season now of our podcast, and we're getting some great comments.
We are.
And we appreciate that. But let us just say this to you. If you are liking the podcast, then do this for us. One, like it, share it,
Yes.
tell
please.
somebody else about it,
Yes.
share it, get it out there, and then comment, if you will, when you have an opportunity to, at the right places on our YouTube or even on our website, wherever you'll be able to do that. It's just a way to help others hear and see the effectiveness of the podcast. And so we're fortunate enough to be able to work together, babe, with our family.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about something that I want to get an image in people's mind. First, before I do so, you want to say anything?
No.
It's just,
Well, you saw
Go
that
ahead.
I wanted to say something. In regards to sharing this podcast,
Mhm.
if you like us and you agree with what we say,
Yeah.
then your friends who like you will like us. That's usually the way it works. It's a network. And if you're afraid to share this because you think, well, what if they don't agree? If you already have those friends in your lives or family members, don't be afraid to share it. Because sometimes we do get pretty controversial in here. We talk about some serious things, but the feedback has been so good. And we know that when we share, we're very specific about what we share to really hit the heart of the matter of relational issues and difficulties being a family, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
We don't sugarcoat. We say things that most people don't say out loud but wish they could.
Yeah.
So if you like us and you have friends that like you, share it with those people and they'll like us too.
That's so
It's
good.
just, I don't know. It sounds elementary, but it's true.
No, makes sense.
It's true.
Definitely makes sense. I didn't start my counter, so make sure you keep me on a tight leash here. I don't want to go too
boy.
long. But, we call ourselves, this podcast, the Alessi Family Business. And what I find happening with the family business is most people that are listening to us don't listen to us for the business sense of
No.
us working together, because that's not what this is really about.
Right.
We happen to have a business in ministry, but it's our family that's working this ministry out together, which is pretty unique because you don't always have family members working together. And right now, all 6 and our son-in-law and daughter-in-law, all 8 of us,
Yeah.
work together in some capacity, whether it's full-time on staff or whether it's the weekend in the services. We all have a part to play. So most people are listening to us because they're looking for tidbits to help them with their family.
Yeah,
So they're raising their
resources, right?
kids, right, when they're young, and then they're dealing with teenagers. And so most of the information that we get back from people really has to do with that.
Absolutely.
And something else I find that they respond to is just our ability to be open and not be afraid to speak our mind and not be afraid to land on the truth that we think is godly truth. So here, being that we're talking about family, I want us to title this podcast, How to Keep from Stalling. Okay? And what the thought there is, I want you to go back for a minute to when we first got our motorcycles.
Yes.
Okay?
And I did ride one, for those of you.
Yeah.
When you say we, us meant we both.
We both had
Yes.
motorcycles.
Crazy.
I had mine, you had yours.
Yep.
And we went to the school because we had to take a class on motorcycle safety.
Yes.
So we did that down in Homestead. And you had your own bike.
Yep.
I had my own bike. And they had to teach us. The first thing they teach you after how to get on your motorcycle and, of course, keep it from falling over is once you start it, in order to take off on a motorcycle, you have to handle the sensitivity of giving the motorcycle gas
Right.
at the same time releasing what is the clutch. The clutch keeps the bike from moving forward, engaging in gear. So when you're holding that clutch, you're standing still. But when you want to take off, you've got to master giving enough gas, putting enough pressure on the engine, and then at the same time releasing the clutch to release the pressure so that the gears engage in order for you to take off. The hardest thing to learn on a motorcycle for the first time is that right there.
It is.
Because what happens if you give too much gas and you let go of the clutch too fast? It'll shoot up in a wheelie, front end,
Crazy.
take off, you'll follow. The bike can shoot out from under you,
Yes,
and you can hurt yourself. The other thing that happens is if you don't give it enough gas when you let off of the clutch, is you will experience a what?
Stalling out.
A stall. Thank you, baby. You weren't sure right there. But that's what happens. The motorcycle will shut off.
It'll shut off.
All right. Now, on a motorcycle, when you're riding, it may not hurt you. It's just going to frustrate you because you're trying to figure out, how do I get that right? How do I, and then slowly,
well, because you think you'll never get the rhythm. You're not going to get it. And then you do.
Because you're so accustomed. I mean, even in your car.
Yeah.
Remember when you had that little Honda? You guys had a manual transmission.
It was a stick shift,
It was stick shift, and you had to learn how to give it gas and let go of the clutch with your feet. So you're doing it with your feet.
You taught me.
That's right.
You taught me.
That's right. So there's it's mastering driving with something that's manual and not encountering the stall. So most people understand what it is if they've ever driven a motorcycle or a vehicle that's a manual transmission. Not going to hurt you, just going to frustrate you.
Right.
Now take that same mindset to an airplane.
Okay.
Now you're talking about life or death.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what happens with an airplane is as it starts to take off and then try to go higher with its altitude, there could be something that occurs when there's not enough gas able to fuel to power the aircraft.
Yeah.
As it ascends, as it goes up into the altitude, the higher you go, your plane then could have a tendency to stall out.
Right.
So think about it from an airplane's perspective. Where an automobile, you're on the ground, it's going to frustrate you. Man, you're in the air, it could kill you.
And all your passengers.
And all your passengers.
Yes.
Where does this tie in to a family? A family dynamic, especially, when they're young, you can navigate pretty easily. It's a manual transmission. Take the baby, change the diaper, feed them, the routine. As they get into school, things start to get a little, funny and you got to adjust. Then they get to high school. Now you're dealing with issues that are a little more peculiar.
Yeah.
So you have to be hands-on, but then you also have to be hands-off because you got to let them start making decisions.
Right.
What happens is they become in college and then they head out the door.
Sure. All the seasons.
Your high school, I think it actually starts, your struggle here between middle school, high school, college, and young adults. That's where you can, if you're not careful, experience a stall.
Yeah.
That could be devastating to their life as well as the life of your family.
Yeah.
So help me out here because let's flesh this out. What would a stall look like to a family?
So I think as we've talked on this podcast before about the seasons and how important those seasons are to know you're in different seasons.
Right.
So when the kids are small, it's 8:00 bedtime. Everybody's going to eat. It's a group event. Everybody's in bed. Go to sleep. Mom and dad get the evening. Well, then as all of a sudden the seasons start to change and the ages are different and one's older and they're out and the season changed and you're in that transitional point of your family. And if you don't know that okay, we're moving into a different season and you don't have that conversation, then all of a sudden what happens is you get out of rhythm again.
Yeah.
So your mom's out of rhythm and she's not able to get as you use the illustration, the clutch and the brake right.
Mm-hmm.
So you just feel like all you're doing is you're in conflict mode all the time, or dad's doing the same thing. So you're both going in different directions. And now you've got a 13-year-old who wants a boyfriend, or, a 13-year-old daughter who wants a boyfriend, or a 15-year-old that's on his phone and you don't know what he's doing. And then before you know it, you've got the 8-year-old who's looking at both of them and you're terrified. So all these seasonal changes that you didn't expect to jump up on you so quickly, there they are. And mom and dad and family now is out of rhythm. Mm-hmm. So it's contention all the time. And the biggest problem is you don't know what to do. Mm. You don't know. Somebody needs to come in and show the family at that moment, or get the right resources to say, this is normal, this too shall pass. And you need to really get together as a family. And there's some things you can do, things we've done.
Yeah. Yeah.
That can help you in those seasons.
Maybe the gift we can give to the audience today would be this. Anytime you're in those moments where you feel like there's a stall, okay, you're about to lose it, you're feeling like you're losing it, or you've lost it.
You're losing power.
Just remember these words. This is normal.
For every single family.
And every single season.
Absolutely.
This is normal.
Absolutely.
You're going to have it. What we have, and I'm still learning, the tendency or the sensitivity of the exchange, because that's what I love about the manual transmission on the motorcycle. You got to know when to put the power on.
Right.
But you also, with that clutch, you got to know when to release some power. You need to release some things. And I find that in parenting with our kids, when they were younger, it was okay for me to be, this is what dad says. This is what you got to do. Why? Because I'm your dad.
Right.
Right? So we come in blazing. This is it, at least from my perspective. You got to give some power there. You got to establish authority in the home.
Yeah.
But then as the kids get older and older and older, now you got to learn, okay, let me softly come in with the power, but also back off with some of the heaviness, the hardness, so that I'm able to then get to my kids' heart, not get interrupted by their head.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true.
What are you talking to me like that for?
Yeah.
That's not a heart issue. That's a head.
Yeah.
So if I'm coming too strong at the kids and I'm in their head, I don't want to be in their head. I don't want them to look at how I'm saying it. I want to get to their heart.
Right.
To be able to show them why I'm saying it, not how I'm saying it.
And I think,
but why?
And I think one of the problems we have as parents is through those transitional periods, we don't realize that you do need to kind of nuance that season and go, hang on a second. I could command in this season, but now the kids are a little older, or my son's a little older, my daughter, and I still am dad, and I still am mom, and we still have the authority, but maybe we need to, you said it, back off a little bit, but listen more instead of command more. Mm-hmm. And those adjustments have to be made. When we were learning to ride that bike, just so everyone knows, I had no intention of riding it. But when I went with you to the class, they said, well, you're here, everyone here gets on a bike. And I said, well, no, I just wanted to learn how to ride on the back. And I'll never forget, because I've told this story before, they said, we don't teach you to ride on the back. If you're going to ride, you're going to learn to ride yourself.
Yeah.
And until this podcast right here, I don't think that I tied together the importance of everybody in the family needs to have the same attitude about the family.
Yeah.
And everybody, mom and dad, and as the kids get older, they'll appreciate it. They'll walk in your footsteps, basically need to be on the same page. You can't have somebody riding on the back that's not invested. Mm-hmm. You can't have the mom who's she's the one she's everything. She's nurturer and she's disciplinary and she's cleaning lady, and dad just comes in and says, I don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
And then dad can't be the one who is always a disciplinarian, and mom is constantly saying, don't talk to the kids like that. And, oh, honey, you both have to bring it both to the table and learn how to ride the clutch and the brake and the accelerator and do the thing. Yeah. Because it's very important. That's what teamwork looks like. I'm not just leaving it up to you. You're not just leaving it up to me. We're in this together. And something else that we have in our family, and we've shared about this again, I hear people in our church say that they've instituted this in their families, is family meetings. Mm-hmm. Have family meetings where you learn what the other's feeling and what they're thinking. And that's how you really learn to have a smooth riding home atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always going to be conflict. You're never going to not somehow hit the gear wrong. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be in a place where you're stalled for too long, where you know something's off,
Yeah.
because you might be in a transitional period. Jump on that. Have that family meeting. Resolve the conflict right away. Don't wait until now you've blown a tire or you're stranded on the side of the road and nobody can come and help you.
I appreciate that people would listen and maybe even ask questions of older adults that have done it right with their kids.
Right.
I remember just having one perspective when we were raising our kids. And my perspective was a little harsher than your perspective.
Right.
So when you and I would have a conversation, for instance, I'd say, Mary, now, especially as our kids are older, Mary, help me out with this. How do I approach this subject with one of the kids?
One of the kids, yeah.
That are not kids, adults. How do I deal with this now? And you bring your perspective, and it helps me balance out. Here we go, power clutch. It helps me balance it out so I don't come in with so much, because mine is so, we gotta get this fixed. Something's wrong with you. You know, my kids make fun of me because I would say, for someone so smart. You're dumb, man. You're acting a fool. And they're like, well, thanks for insulting me, Dad, right? So if I'm insulting them, I can't even get to the point.
Right.
I'm just on the ignition of that gas, that accelerator.
Yeah, you're overriding the engine.
And you're like, wait, here's another perspective. So it helps me.
Right.
Now, it's good to have that in the family. But if you don't have it in the family, it's also good to have it with some friends or associates or people that have already done this. Because I'm thinking about, not too long ago, somebody said, hey, they were talking to me about their son. And of course, it had to do with dating. And as they were talking about it, I heard their perspective, but because I was a little further back, I could see that what the young adult was doing, it was bad. But it wasn't bad enough to strip them of all of their
privileges.
All right.
Yeah.
This was like going right to the jugular. This is like life sentence. I'm not putting you in jail. You're going to prison. All right. This is right under death. And I'm listening to them, and I gave my opinion about it.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't know if it's the grandfather. I don't know if it's because the emotional investment was different with their situation than with my own, but it was so much easier to bring a more balanced approach to, all right, this is what he did.
Yeah.
All right. But this is also a time to go in and talk to them from an adult perspective. The adult perspective is, you shouldn't be in this relationship, but let me show you why you shouldn't be in that relationship right now.
Yeah.
And then you talk a little bit more. Your grades are suffering.
Right.
Right? You're not getting enough sleep. You're agitated more. You're on your phone more. Okay? These are things that as a young adult or as an adult, you're going to have to learn now to be able to fix, so that when you're older and you're in a corporate setting or you're married, you can't be agitated all the time because you're having a fight with somebody. And it's not just going to be your spouse in the future. It's going to be somebody on the job. And so it's good for you to learn these things now. You can't stay up super late hanging out with your friends when you have a corporate job and you show up tired. It's good to teach your kids these lessons.
Right.
Okay? Because now you're appealing to their heart. Now you're saying, look, I want to help you with something here. So listening from an outside perspective. In that scenario, hey, the choice of a relationship for the young man was 100% better than the choice that the kid had before.
Right.
The other one that he had to break off was like a train wreck.
Yeah.
So you had to give a little compliment there. Hey, man, at least you chose a better option this time. So that's good. Let's applaud that part of it. Right. But let's be a little bit more realistic right now. Hey, the reason I don't want you dating this individual right now is because I see this other mess of your life that you're making because you get so distracted in that relationship. Right. So coming at it from that perspective is, okay, let me give a little gas, but let me go ahead and release the clutch. Right. I'm not going to I may take your cell phone away from you for this. I'm not going to take your car away from you.
Right.
You know?
But you said it in the very beginning of that. You said this particular person asked you what to do. And I think that is getting resources and getting counsel on it from somebody who's doing it well, whose kids are in their 30s and they're married to good people and they're having kids and they're doing good. Ask those people, what did you do? Did your son or your daughter go through a season like this? But I do think sometimes as parents, we have a lot of pride with our kids.
Say it again.
We have a lot of pride
Yeah.
and we don't want to share the very thing that could be such a blessing that keeps us up at night. And we're so afraid we're losing our kid. And it's just a dumb season they're in. And, even engagements, we've talked about this with engagements. Sometimes they don't pass the ring test. Just because they're engaged doesn't mean they're going to get married.
Right.
They may not. I mean, there's so many scenarios along the way in life when you're raising up your children. And in our day, right now, culturally, your young adults live at home. They just can't afford to live on their own. So there's more resources that you need. When in the 80s, 70s and 80s, 18, you moved out.
Yeah.
You and your friend had some weird couch somewhere and you were living, working. But now your kids are 24, 26, 27, and they're still living at home. So now you've got these roommates, but you're still mom and dad. So if you would ask, there are people around you that are doing it well. And we encourage you to make sure you're taking advice from people who have done it well.
Done it well.
And have good fruit.
Yeah. And you're listening to us, and we're on 35 years of marriage.
Right.
We've got a 30-year-old all the way down to a 21-year-old. We've got 2 of them that are married. What you see today is not where we and who we were, where we were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We were fleshing this thing out, trying to figure out how do we get this done. So I don't want you hearing this episode today thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a failure as a parent. No, it just depends on where you're at in your parenting. But if it's not working and you're stalling out and you're seeing that it's constant friction in the home and you and your spouse aren't on the same page and you're seeing that this isn't working and your kids are being a little rebellious and maybe they don't want to talk to you much and they're going into their room. If you're feeling all of that, hey, today's a great day to start adjusting.
Right.
To help you with that transaction of being firm, but also releasing some things as your kids get older. So learn from this point on to make some adjustments there.
And as our kids get older, we have to stop criticizing and we have to start understanding. There is that season for that. And I will say, when you first set up this podcast about the dangers of stalling, if you stall in a motorcycle, if you stall on a car, you just pull over to the side of the road.
Right.
But when we're taking flight with our families and we're stalling in an airplane, that's a completely different situation. And the good news today is that you can add resources right now to your daily process with your kids and with your spouse, and it can change tomorrow. That's what people need to know when they're listening to this podcast. What we are telling you, it works. It will work in theory, but it also works in technique.
Yeah.
If you start applying this to your life, try it today. Think about what you're going to say before you just, blow in the house and you're mad because somebody left their shoes at the door. Right. And change your approach so that you don't get the same results that sends everyone to their room. And now nobody cares anymore, and you feel isolated and alone.
Right.
Change your approach.
So let's give them a couple of tips here.
Yeah.
I'm stalling. I'm having a hard time. I'm not moving forward. Okay.
Yes.
First thing I think is the God aspect.
Yeah.
There has to be a set of godly values that you could bring to the table in the family.
Right.
Okay. Just not a bunch of screaming because there's disagreement.
No.
If you're going to disagree on something with your kids and you're trying to teach them something, make sure you're teaching them godly principles, which means you got to have a God relationship.
Right.
And then if you're married, I think the 2 of you, pilot, co-pilot, AP brought this up as he has seen some shows on television with regards to airplanes stalling out. Make sure the pilot and the co-pilot's on the same page. You don't want to cause a crash because you're not in one. Remember, mom and dad, husband and wife, you are sharing the cockpit together.
Right.
That's your place. That's your role. You're leading this thing.
Don't belittle each other, make fun of each other.
No. So I think the 2 of you got to get on the same page.
Yes.
I also think you need to be aware of what we said earlier. There's going to be seasonal changes with your kids. And you just got to recognize this is part of the landscape. This is normal. So we're going to have some friction from time to time. Let me anticipate it. And what I can't do is I can't run from it and pretend it's not there.
Right.
What I have to do is address it. Because here's the thing with an airplane. The airplane, the only time it's really going to stall, Mary, is when it's going higher. When it's going from one elevation to another elevation, going higher. What you're always thinking about with your family is, I just don't want to raise a family for the sake of having a family. I want to raise good kids.
Yeah.
That word raise means you're going higher. You're taking them somewhere.
Right.
So just don't have a mindset that says, hey, for peace sake, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to address anything.
Right.
No.
Brush everything under the rug.
Right. And it's not conflict. It's you're raising a child. I'm afraid of conflict. I don't want to have that in the home. Oh my gosh, that's where you were early on. You didn't ever want to have conflict in the home. I'm like, no. We got to deal with this now.
That's right.
Or we're going to have conflict later.
And I'm so glad you did.
So we raise kids saying, all right, I got to do this right now.
Yes.
Because I'm taking them to another altitude.
Absolutely.
I'm raising them to be better, even better than me. I want a better child than I was.
Yeah.
I'm a better professional, a better minister, a better musician. I want them to be better than I was. So I'm taking them higher, which means there's going to be a tendency to stall out. But I gotta master it. I gotta figure it out.
Right.
Anything else you want to say on that with the how-tos? How we can help them?
I think it's, again, making sure that you're resolving those conflicts as quick as possible, having those family meetings, making sure that when things are off, you're saying we have a safe place as a family to be able to talk about it. Where, mom and dad, we don't wait until we have a fight. We have a moment where we're going to sit down and talk about things that have happened in dealing with the kids without so much argument and without so much emotion and passion, so that you can get your thoughts together and listen to one another and respect one another, because mom and dad bring two sides to the table. You have two different approaches. So if we get on the same page, it's going to be a whole lot easier because we are a team and we're united. And then the kids don't ever think they have an in with me or an in with you. They know, no, if you deal with the father, you're going to deal with the mother, and that the two of them are always united. And the family needs to know that. Your kids need to know there's no one parent here that is easier to wrap around your finger than the other. You got to make sure they know, the way that it works is if you went and asked dad and he said no, and you came and asked me, and you think I'm going to say yes, now you're in more trouble, because it's not going to work like that.
Kids are manipulators, aren't they?
By nature.
By nature. That's
All
so
of them.
funny, though.
All of them. Even the sweet ones, even the ones you think are angels, they have a little bit of that in them.
Let me ask you this. Do you think a parent that shares a certain temperament, personality with a child, that's the parent that should be dealing with the child more often when it comes to correction? Or do you think, hey, even if not, that my personality is not the same as Lauren's, but I'm going to go in there. But maybe you have a tendency to have more of a hurt personality. Is it better for you to address things, or?
No, I think here's what I have found from experience.
Go.
I think, like Christopher is more my personality, but because he was the son, you would make sure that you went in and you were imparting, because he needed to feel like he had, even though the way he talked with you was maybe things would get heated quicker than with me, what he couldn't think, and he has said this, and he said this on one of the podcasts, what he couldn't think as a young man was, I can work mom. And that's we're so much alike. And I would start saying that, you and I are the same, son. And well, that's not really good, because he's not going to marry somebody like me. He's going to marry, most likely, his opposite personality.
Yep.
So even with our other kids, Stephanie is most like you, but she and I, it's been very important that she and I develop a relationship of working together. And just like you and Lauren, Gabby is like a mix of both of us. But I think it's equal time. I don't think you should lean towards one parent. Yeah. That's dangerous for the future.
Yeah.
You need to be able to, both parents talk to the kid regardless of their personality types.
Well, we're not going to stall out.
No.
35 years of marriage, 25 years of ministry in our business.
Started.
Our kids are involved. You talk about family meetings. Gosh, I'm getting ready to, I put it on my notes today, Mary.
Yeah.
I want to make a decision about something as simple as another campus.
Right.
Us looking at it. But I'm realizing, wait, 5 to 7 years down the road, I'm in my mid-60s, if I'm pulling back are they going to be up to handling a third campus?
That's right.
So I'm right now have on my next family meeting list having a conversation about that.
That's great.
Because I could always say, oh, God told me to do this, or hey, I'm feeling we got to do this for the, but what if that's not their deal?
Sure.
So I want to have a family business about even that in our career. I want to see what that looks like for them down the road and not just make a decision now based on what I want. So what am I doing? I'm working the clutch. I'm working the gas, even at this season of our lives with our young adult kids. Because that's a whole other thing. Now you got in-laws in the picture?
Well,
wow. Boom,
well,
boom.
Here's one quick little tip. The whole we'll cross that bridge when we get to it could be very dangerous in a family. Mm-hmm. You need to back up and know that bridge is right there.
Yeah.
What am I going to do to get ready to make that crossing easy?
Yeah.
So if you wait to cross that bridge and you wait to have that conversation, you wait till things get a certain way, then you have to backpedal and you can spin out of control and you can really stall right there and you don't ever cross over that bridge. So it's super important as a parent to get wisdom. Be a smart parent.
Yeah.
Be a smart parent.
Gotcha, girl. Well,
no, at whatever season.
Yes,
whatever season.
I gotcha. Well, this is coffee time. This is what Mary and I do at home when we get something in our head and we start talking, and we could go on and on and on. But we don't want to keep you any longer. Hopefully you have enjoyed this episode of The Family Business with Steve and Mary Alessi. Thanks for joining.
Hey there, if you enjoyed this episode of the Family Business Podcast with the Alessis, then you'll want to know we've got more insight, more encouragement, more great conversations that we can have on Sundays, and even some surprises coming your way. So you want to make sure you subscribe to our channel and watch one of these next videos here next, because remember, family is everybody's business.